shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. They them on the stay up. You ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubt is sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones that believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wantin' more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah. Yeah. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. They them on the stay up. You ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubt is sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones that believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire.
Gets out of a tackle, now turns on the Jets, up to the 30, the 20, 10, 5, Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
48-yard play, guess who? Body, up the middle, making another move, to the outside, 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it, nice move by Brown, he's got space, he's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown, a record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
So far, a little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty, give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to pin it in a row. It does. Rowe stays up. The show's off his 4-3 wheels. Incredible effort for Rowe.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live, and we are excited to bring you another G5 college football coverage that you love each and every week. I am Luke, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. Another week of college football down. We're climbing to that halfway point, and guess what? We got an ODU win for our boy Justice. It's away, so you didn't get to maybe celebrate the way you might like at home, but
well, I went to a watch party, so I got to celebrate with other Old Dominion fans. So that was cool. Yeah, there's a local brewery here, Afterglow Brewing, that they are partnered with the NIL collective for Old Dominion, the Pride of ODU. They also recently released a beer where money gets donated to the NIL. And so they've been doing events for athletics, I don't know, since the summer. And they have really great beer too. So just a cool place. Got to enjoy it with other Old Dominion fans. So that was cool. Finally get the W. Harold Fannin Jr., man, dude, oh man, he's
having.
He is a beast. He's a beast. He was their offense. And I was just screaming, just triple cover the guy, put everybody on him or something, man. Because he was just torching Old Dominion, he did to Penn State. He did it to Texas A&M. He's torched every team he's played this season. And Old Dominion was no different. Lucky to walk out of there with a win.
I did not get to watch as much college football as I would like this weekend. I got to celebrate. I had a college teammate, played college baseball, college shortstop. Brad Bloom made it into the Hall of Fame for our school, so I went back to celebrate with him and some teammates, and it was a blast. Tried to do things like we were young again. don't recover quite as quickly as they used to. But we went to the bar scene. We rode. We have a drunk bus on campus that will take you to the bars and then back to campus. So we did a tour of that. Like we were fully immersed in the college experience. It was a fun weekend. It was about a 4.5 hour drive. So that drive back Sunday was a little bit rough, but went to our football game. Our football game did not go too well. I think it was 56-0. It was 10-0 at halftime. 10-0 at halftime and lose. I think it was like 56-0, 63. It was rough. That's rough. Not good. So, but hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please give us a rate and review. Let's get into it. We've got our G5 Hive Players of the Week for Week 5. So let's hear. Freshman offense, running back Ahmad Hardy, Louisiana Monroe. He rushed for 106 yards, 1 touchdown to lead the Warhawks in a win over Troy. This is the second time this season that Ahmad has cracked the 100-yard mark. He is leading the Warhawks in rushing this season with 297 yards. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. As a senior, he rushed for over 2,200 yards and was a member of the All-State team. The Warhawks have been a surprise this season nonetheless, and Hardy has been a big part of their success in 2024. Just kind of busted on the scene kind of from week 1, and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube now.
Yeah, he's certainly been given some opportunities, and he's taken advantage of it and made the most of it for sure. All right, moving over to our defensive freshman of the week. It's cornerback Amarian Fortenberry from South Alabama. He had 10 tackles, 8 solos, and 2 pass defenses to lead the Jaguars defense against P4 LSU from the SEC. Amarian was a 3-star recruit out of high school. He started the last 4 games for the Jaguars at cornerback, and he led them in tackles on Saturday. On the season, he has 23 tackles, 5 pass breakups, and 1 interception. And even as a freshman, he is making an impact for that Jaguars defense.
And let's get into my offensive player of the week in week 5, Ben Wooldridge, Louisiana. He was 20 for 29 for 257 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He had 34 yards on the ground and a touchdown to help lead the Raging Cajuns past Wake Forest. Another G5 over P4 win. This was at Wake Forest, nonetheless, a 41-38 win. I'm not sure how much money they got paid to come into Wake Forest and win, but we love it when it happens. So shout out to Zylan Perry on the clutch 57-yard punt return to set them up for what would become the game-winning field goal from 31 yards out. Congratulations to Ben and the Raging Cajuns.
My offensive player of the week was quarterback Hajj-Malik Williams from UNLV. He was 13 for 16 for 182 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, added another 119 yards on the ground, as well as a rushing touchdown to lead the Rebels to a huge 59-14 victory over Mountain West foe Fresno State. With all that went on last week for UNLV, Hajj, being named the starter, he come in and make his first start as a UNLV Rebel, and to play lights out in a big Mountain West conference matchup. I mean, it's just really impressive, right? Like there have been, like I just couldn't blame him. Like if he didn't perform up to par with all the things that went on last week, but man, he came in and just was lights out. Just super impressive there from Hajj-Malik Williams, and congrats to UNLV on the big win.
Huge win.
All right, my defensive player of the week, safety Jerron Manning, Old Dominion, 9 tackles, 4 solos, and a 43-yard interception to help lead the Monarchs to a big victory over Bowling Green in Week 5. Jerron has played lights out all season long for these Monarchs. I think he has 4 interceptions on the year, 3 or 4. He's been a tackling machine. He's a cover guy. He provides run support. He tackles. He's kind of a do-it-all safety, and and he is just having an outstanding year for the Old Dominion Monarchs.
My player of the week was defensive back Caleb Weaver from Sam Houston. He had 9 tackles, all of which were solo tackles. Played a big part in their 40-39 win over Texas State. At one point in the first quarter, they were down 22-0, only to let up 17 more points the rest of the game. Eat 'em up, Cats. I believe earlier in the season, I said that this could be a Sun Belt championship game, and I believe I said that Sam Houston beat Texas State.
Yeah, they're in Conference USA. So you had Sam Houston in the Conference USA championship game against Liberty.
Okay, what was that? What was the one that I mentioned? I feel like there was another team. Who's Texas State end playing that I thought might be a rematch? I'm trying to remember who that was.
App State? I don't know.
No, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. Anyways, Sam Houston, big fans of them this year. Big win big comeback against Texas State. Justice,
all right.
Let's get into what the Swarm needs to know. News and notes.
Sure. So just a couple comments, I guess, from our viewers. We'll get in before we get into the news and notes. So Andrew asked about our thoughts on JMU moving forward. We're going to talk about them a little bit more when we get to the Hero Sports G5 Top 25 poll. But I mean, I think JMU is looking like the best team in the Sun Belt East. They had a shaky start, but they put up 70 points and 60 points in back-to-back weeks. Look like they have things figured out there, especially on offense. And so, they're looking very, very strong once again. As much as it pains me to say that as an Old Dominion fan, you just can't deny it. They're looking really good, and they're probably the favorite in the Sun Belt East this year. What do you think, Luke?
Well, I was, at first, just based on how they were playing, it was almost kind of like playing to whatever their competition was. It was either down to it or up to it. It didn't really matter. And the last 2 weeks, was it their bye week? Then they had 2 weeks here where they've put up quite a bit of points. It was like that bye week, they figured out some stuff. And like you said, put up quite a bit of points, figuring out what's working for them. I think when the season started, I was very optimistic that JMU could, do really well based on that coaching staff coming up from the D3 levels. And you don't always get to pick your players that you have. So sometimes when you just inherit players, you just do the best you have. And they've been able to just kind of work with that. And then based off those first 2 weeks, I think it was, I was like, maybe I gave them too much credit. But here they are doing what I thought they could before. So I think this is something that they can continue to roll with.
Absolutely. I don't think the defense is as good as it was last year, but I think the offense is probably just as good, and they're going to be able to score points pretty much with anybody. So yeah, it looks like a very good season incoming once again for JMU. Billy says that hi. First of all, hi, Billy. Yeah. Saluka leaving might be the best thing for UNLV. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week on the special episode we did with Brian from Big Blue USU Aggie News, and that Hajj is a better passer. I think we saw that in the game this past weekend. Probably is not as good of a runner, but he still ran for 119 yards and a touchdown. So he's not a zero in the running game. And it certainly seems like he has the support of a lot of that team. We saw a lot of tweets at the end of last week when all the Saluka news came out, basically, supporting Hajj, saying, they had utmost confidence in him, and and we can see why, right? After that performance against Fresno State was so lopsided, they just absolutely dominated Fresno State. I don't think people realize how good this UNLV defense is. It's probably the best defense in the G5 for sure. And And I think the offense with Hajj is going to be better, right? I think they're more capable in terms of the passing game. You saw Ricky White have a outstanding game once again.
Boy, is he excited to have Hajj.
To have Hajj, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think if I had to predict today, I think UNLV has a big matchup, in terms of their playoff hopes and getting another P4 win coming up, and we'll be talking about that shortly against Syracuse. But it's shaping up where that UNLV Boise State game
Friday night.
It'll
be a Friday night.
Long way. Yeah, a long way to determine who's going to be the
homecoming.
Playoffs.
Yeah, UNLV's homecoming.
They could play each other twice, right? They could play in that game and then play again in the Mountain West Championship, and those games could go a long way in deciding who makes the college football playoffs from the G5.
It'll be that game will be a big one in just maybe who gets home field advantage. Because if it comes to those two, and then are you going to Boise State or are you going to UNLV? Which honestly, I think Boise is probably better off being in either position, like from an offensive standpoint, where it's like I feel like UNLV would definitely want to be in a dome because I just feel like the ground and pound just favors Boise State a little bit more, and you're going to have cold weather. So I don't know. I just feel like it would be more important for UNLV to get a home game as opposed to Boise. Obviously, you want to play at home, your environments and whatnot. The other thing that I got the vibes during the season was Hajj-Malik Williams came in, did spring ball. Saluka wasn't there, performed really well, and honestly probably performed better than the coaching staff thought. And then when Saluka came, it's like, how do we give this job to Saluka after what we've seen? And it seemed like they were surprised with what they were able to get out of Hajj-Malik Williams, in my opinion, based off of reading in between the tea leaves and camps and talking with people around the program. So I think this is something that maybe the players knew from the beginning. There are plenty of times that coaches get the wrong quarterback pegged. Now, whether it was for money or this or that, sometimes you just pick the wrong guy. But I feel like people knew, and maybe they had a split camp, and then obviously, then the camp that was on Hajj-Malik Williams side pretty ecstatic this week. What's up, Brett?
Yeah, the Broncos and Rebels will definitely be must-watch TV, and we might get to see it twice. Speaking of both the Broncos and the Rebels, the AP Top 25 poll, Boise State moves up to number 21 from number 25, and UNLV makes its debut in the top 25, coming in at number 25. Others receiving votes, James Madison comes in at number 32, Navy at number 36, and Army at number 39. Interesting, Liberty was getting votes last week. The game against App State got canceled. But Liberty's gotten no votes this week. I just thought that was kind of interesting because they didn't even play. But one thing I guess for you, Luke, if you ranked Boise State and UNLV in the poll, where would you put the two of them in the AP Top 25?
Let's see here. I feel like I would put Boise State. So they're at 21. They're right in between Louisville and Kansas State. I feel like I would have them at 20. I feel like they're in a pretty good spot here. I feel like 20 would be where I'd go above Kansas State. I'd be tempted to put them in over Oklahoma just based off of injuries and the quarterback. But, it's fine. I feel like 20 would be where I would feel comfortable putting Boise State as of now, and then just let next week happen. Utah didn't look all that great at home against Arizona. Then you got Arizona State, you've got Oklahoma and Texas for their next matchup. So Oklahoma, I think because are they on a bye this week and then play Oklahoma or then play Texas? I think so. It's like
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Over a bye week they probably jump them type thing. But I don't think I could put them over like Iowa State or Clemson as of like right now. So like I don't know. I feel comfortable at 20, and UNLV. I feel like they should be behind Illinois and Indiana, but probably ahead of Louisville. So I feel like maybe Louisville's kind of that weird spot. So maybe like put Louisville down to 25 and move everybody up one. So UNLV's at 20, 24. And like I get it, Boise State lost a game, but I mean it was Oregon
against
playing
number
pretty
6
well.
Oregon.
So
and it was a close game. Yeah.
So I'm pretty okay with where these are.
I think if it was up to me, I'd probably put Boise State 19, but like I don't know, I could see an argument for making them all the way up to number 16, right behind Clemson. UNLV, I would probably put maybe like 21, 22, somewhere in that range. I think I'd have them above Texas A&M, Illinois, Indiana, and Louisville for sure. And they're going to get a chance to prove themselves against the P4 again this week when they take on Syracuse. Are there any teams that you just think probably shouldn't be ranked? Like to me, like Indiana, I get why they're ranked, but I don't know that they haven't really played anyone. They've been impressive in their wins. I'll give them that. But they really haven't played anyone, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm not overly impressed with Illinois or Oklahoma or Utah either. So I don't know.
You're not impressed with Illinois' loss to Penn State. I feel like they played that one they had a garbage touchdown at the end, but like I feel like that one was a pretty like I don't know. I don't have out of all the weeks that we've looked at the top 25, I have the least amount of heartache over this week in particular. But like
I don't know. It's just like Indiana, like I said, they're 5-0, but they haven't played anybody. And they jump in at number 23. I don't know. Like to me, it just reeks of the P4 bias, I guess. And I don't care for it.
Like what is more egregious to me is what's happening just outside the top 25, where you've got James Madison receiving votes, Navy, Army, and you've got James Madison at number 32 with 13 votes, Navy at number 36 with 6 votes, and Army at 39 with 2. Personally, I think Army's defense is better than Navy's, so I would have, at worst, them flip-flopped. But like that's a scheme that's hard to prep for. They might, they're going to go like that game at the end of the season will be a good one. James Madison, I don't have an issue.
They should be getting more votes for sure.
Yeah, like I don't have any issue with them being above Army or Navy, but yeah, more.
And they should be getting more votes than Boston College. But yeah, it's that P4 bias.
Also, the fact that Arizona has 106 votes, just like
that's
amazing to me. Like I don't get it.
I don't think they're that good either.
I don't know where Pittsburgh was last week, but whatever. Did they have a cup? They had a bye week, and they got votes.
I believe they had a bye this past week. Yes,
because they had some cupcake like 2 weeks ago, and then I don't know. No.
Well, let's get to the real top 25 poll, and that's the Hero Sports G5 top 25 poll through week 5, heading into week 6. We are voters in this poll. We submitted our votes last night. The poll got released tonight. we line up with the top 10 in terms of the top 10 teams. We don't necessarily have them in the same exact order, but our top 10 teams are the same top 10 teams in the consensus poll. If you're watching on YouTube, you see teams 1 through 25. They're ranked. That's not our personal rankings. That is the consensus poll. And there's several media folks that vote in this poll. I mean, I don't really have any issues with how they have the top 10. I mean, JMU's a little bit higher than what we have them at, but hey, I have no problems. There's arguments certainly be made for them to be where they are. Probably the biggest difference between our votes and what you see here on the screen, the consensus votes, the biggest one's probably South Alabama. We're much higher than the consensus is on South Alabama. We had South Alabama ranked 13th. Consensus has them at 21. I know they lost to LSU this week, but it's SEC LSU. They dominated App State 2 weeks ago. They have a big matchup this week, so I think we're going to learn a lot about South Alabama and the Sun Belt coming up this week. And then the only other places where we really had big differences, I think, is we ranked Louisiana Monroe and we ranked Ohio, and we did not rank East Carolina or App State. App State, man, they have potential. I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around. I don't think they're a top 25 G5 team today. Maybe they'll have a turnaround like they did last year, get things right after their bye week, or wasn't really a bye week. Game got canceled. But speaking of App State, we posted earlier ways you can help App State. If you haven't seen, they got devastated with the hurricane there. Lots of flooding. They had to cancel the game. They got a lot of issues, a lot of more issues other than football going on there in Boone. And if you're so inclined to help, go to our Twitter account and you'll find a tweet from earlier today on how you can help the folks there in Boone, North Carolina. Anything else you wanted to mention, or any other thoughts you had here, Luke, with the G5 top 25 poll?
No, looks pretty good. I'll be curious on when and if Liberty drops a game. They've just been kind of getting, I don't know if I want to say lucky is the right word, but
living dangerously.
Yeah, living dangerously. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe it's Liberty and Sam Houston. Maybe they play at the end.
Yes, they will play. They will play at some point this season, in the regular season.
I think that's the team that plays at the end. I think could be a rematch there in the championship. Anyways, some undefeated teams through 5 weeks. We've got the Army Black Knights. They've got Tulsa coming up. Navy Midshipmen. They have Air Force coming up. Man, Air Force, usually one of the dominant teams of the service academies, and they dropped one to Wyoming this last week. So things not going well there for Air Force. I mean, we kind of knew that they lost a lot, but maybe a bigger step down than I kind of thought. But anyways, Liberty Flames, they're on a bye, so they should stay undefeated with that bye week. I don't think the bye week's ever really won. UNLV, they have Syracuse at home, I believe, right?
I believe it's at UNLV, yeah.
So that'll be huge. And then James Madison Dukes versus UL Monroe. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got some winless teams through 5 weeks. This was a team that we saw Sam Houston on this list last year trying to fight for their first win. This year, we've got Kennesaw State Owls. They play Jacksonville State on Friday night. UTEP Miners play Sam Houston on Thursday night. UTEP and Kennesaw play each other on November 9th. And then Kennesaw State Golden Flashes are on a bye this week.
Kent State Golden Flashes.
Oh, what did I say?
Kennesaw.
Oh, Kennesaw. They're
you had Kennesaw on your mind.
Kennesaw, yeah. So yeah, sorry. Kent State Golden Flash is on a bye this week. So
3 teams.
3 teams left. So
5 undefeated and 3 that haven't won. we'll see who makes it all the way to the end on these lists. Hopefully, there's no one left on the winless team list here after a couple weeks. So moving on to some conference realignment news. We talked, we spent a whole hour. I guess was it last Thursday night talking about this with Utah State deciding to join the Pac-12. Most of the reports this week have kind of centered around the Mountain West. So they reportedly offered a spot to Texas State, as well as Northern Illinois and Toledo. The Northern Illinois and Toledo offers were football only. Texas State was an all sports offer. And then it was also rumored up until, I don't know, maybe an hour ago or so, that UTEP and New Mexico State were also going to be targets. But about an hour ago, we heard news that UTEP is in discussions with the Mountain West, pretty deep discussions, that there's interest from both UTEP and the Mountain West, mutual interest on both sides, and that we should expect a decision soon. And folks have been reporting all day that Texas State is gone. I don't understand that move. Like, if it was to the Pac-12, sure. To the Mountain West, I don't get it, because my personal opinion is they're leaving a better conference in the Sun Belt to go to the Mountain West, a depleted Mountain West. And so I don't quite understand that move for Texas State. I mean, I think in the short term, sure, maybe it's a little bit more money because the Mountain West TV deal is better. But I think at the end of the day, when those TV deals get renegotiated, the Sun Belt deal is going to be better than what that renegotiated Mountain West deal will be, with losing those 5 teams to the Pac-12. So I just don't quite understand that move if Texas State were to leave the Sun Belt. But yeah, it's constant change. We did get to see some details of that Pac-12 deal for the 4 teams that are leaving the Mountain West. It's Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State. So the term sheet was released, and just a couple of highlights from that. If any of those teams do not join the Pac-12, they have a $40 million penalty. If they get they call it an A4, and I guess they're calling that the automatic 4 for the bowl, but everyone else calls it the P4, but the contract says A4. If they get a P4 invite, then they only have to pay a $30 million penalty. As far as revenues, if they qualify for the college football playoff or the NCAA basketball tournament, they get to keep 50% of those revenues. The other 50% go and get split among the conference. The Pac-12 network, which doesn't really exist anymore, but there's still an entity, still a studio known as the Pac-12 Enterprises that's still around and can be revived. So the 6 schools are scheduled to negotiate the structure and control, etc., of that Pac-12 Enterprise / network on October 11th. But Oregon State and Washington State they basically have the final approval on everything, right? From any decisions relating to future media deals and conference invites. Oregon State and Washington State are the head honchos, if you will. Those 2 got final say over any of that kind of stuff. So just interesting times. I mean, if Conference USA loses UTEP, they could also lose New Mexico State as well. It'd be interesting to kind of see what they do. But the thing that interests me the most is if Texas State does decide to leave, what is the Sun Belt going to do? I mean, I've talked about it for a long time. I want to see East Carolina in the Sun Belt. That's not going to happen. Not until some other dominoes fall from the AAC. And so the obvious, obvious choices would be someone from Conference USA, Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech. Those are I think those are probably the 2 front runners. If I had to take a guess, I know there's some bad blood there with those teams having left the Sun Belt in the past. to join Conference USA. And so I don't know. It'd be interesting to kind of see what happens if Texas State does make a move. What Sun Belt's going to do, and would the Sun Belt entertain taking more than one? Right. I would think if they're going to take more than one, it has to be three, so they can add to both the East and the West. Sun Belt's Texas State's in the Sun Belt West. But yeah, that's probably the thing I'm most interested to see is if this shakes out where Texas State leaves, is what the Sun Belt does and who they potentially go after to fill that spot, and do they go after more than one team? So stay tuned. And some other news: Central Michigan quarterback coach Jake Costner. He resigned effective September 15th. If you're asking, well, who is this and what's this all about? So reportedly, Costner was involved in the Connor Stallions saga. Connor Stallions was the coach there at Michigan that the Spygate cheating scandal, whatever you want to call it. There's a Netflix documentary that's out now on that. But folks believe that Jake Costner was the GA from Central that Stallions referred to in texts from 2021. So he has moved on. Ashton Jeanty, man. Like, we could pick him every week for the player of the week, right? I mean, we don't do that. We like to show some love to some other players. But Ashton Jeanty is just having an incredible season.
I don't know if you saw this, but Pat McAfee was talking about him on his show. Really cool. Before the G5 Hive was created, I got the chance to sit down with Ashton Jeanty. I've got a pinned tweet on my Twitter at Probasco. Luke on Twitter. I sat down with Campus to Canton, Austin Nace, as we did an interview together for that. So he was like one of my first player interviews that I've ever done, and pretty cool to see where he's come from. But he has a really, really cool story. So if you're not aware of the Ashton Jeanty story, and I'm sure you'll hear all about it come the Heisman time, and they're talking about his background. I'm sure they'll talk about it. But if you want to hear more, it's like a 14-minute interview or so, and you can see that on my pin tweets.
Yeah, I mean, like, at this point, like, if the Heisman votings today, he has to win, in my opinion. He has just gone absolutely nuts each and every week. If he keeps his current pace up, he will end the season with 3,380 yards rushing and 52 touchdowns. Like, I don't know that he's going to get that, but I mean, if he gets 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, how do you not give the man the Heisman Trophy, right? Like, I mean, it shouldn't even be close. He currently has 588 yards after contact, which I think someone said ranks like, I don't know,
6 or something like
that.
Yeah,
it's in the top 10. And that's yards after contact. And then he has 43 missed tackles, which leads the country, and that is just absolutely insane. So not only does he deserve an invite to New York, he deserves to walk away with that trophy right now. And I hope that he's able to keep this up, that the committee and the voters will see it that way and not shun him just because he's from the G5. Because, I mean, it doesn't matter the competition. He put the numbers up against Oregon. It doesn't matter. He is just an incredible talent, and I can't wait to watch him play on Sundays.
Absolutely.
Another some I don't know. It's kind of been back and forth today. You've seen conflicting reports amongst their own, I guess, media, if you will, and that has to do with Texas State defensive end Ben Bell. So earlier today, it was reported that he was going to sit out the remainder of the season in redshirt, and then later on, there were video of Coach Kenny actually got released. And he said that Ben Bell's at practice today, and he said that, I mean, it's kind of cryptic. He says like it's a week-to-week thing, so I don't really know what that means. And he also said that Ben wants to play. So he did not play in the game against Sam Houston. If he was to sit out the year, that'd be a huge loss for them. And through 3 games, he has 5 tackles and 3.5 sacks in those 3 games. Last year, he led the Bobcats with 10 sacks. It would just be it'd be a huge loss for Texas State. He could still play one more game and still redshirt. Hopefully we'll learn more. I don't know. It just seems odd, right? Like he's at practice and he wants to play, but then the coach calls it a week to week situation. Folks aren't aware of an injury. Maybe there is an injury. I don't know. I don't really want to speculate. It's just a very strange situation. And and we've seen it kind of play out on X today throughout the folks that the various outlets that do cover Texas State. So stay tuned in terms of Ben Bell. Florida Atlantic wide receiver Jashawn Platt was announced today that he will redshirt this season. And this is a move to aid in his development. He is not expected to transfer. Oftentimes at this point, you say, oh, well, he's preserving a year so he can transfer. In the case of Jashawn Platt, he's not expected to transfer. This is just more a move to kind of help him develop and get ready for the future next year. One thing I forgot to do, and I missed a big opportunity earlier when I did my player of the week. I'm gonna my defensive player of the week. I'm gonna go back and do something I should have done then really, really quick. When we're talking about NIL, like you folks that are watching us, like you should go and support the athletes of your school, man. I'm an Old Dominion fan. Jerron Manning has a T-shirt out. I'm actually wearing the shirt. The proceeds, all profit of this shirt, go directly to Jerron Manning, and to me, that's what NIL is about, right? Supporting the athletes for your school. So if you have a favorite school, look or a favorite athlete. Look those athletes up and see how you can support them. A lot of them have apparel out. Ashton Jeanty's got a Heisman shirt out. So yeah, support your local athletes, the schools you love, and help them through your support of the purchasing their apparel. All right. Before we get to, and if you want to support Jerron Manning, again, I tweeted out a link to that last week as well. When all the Sluka stuff was going on, you can go to odumonarchist.com, and there you'll find a link where you could purchase your own Jerron Manning T-shirt. All right, let's get into some injury news. Temple quarterback Evan Simon was not able to throw at practice today due to a shoulder injury. If he can't go this week, it'll be Forrest Brock to go against UConn. Quarterback Byron Brown, South Florida. I watched this game. He got rolled up on by a defender that was kind of taken to the ground by the offensive lineman, and he rolled up on Byron Brown's leg. I don't know. He did not come back. Don't know how bad that injury was and what to expect, but stay tuned to our X handle. If we see any news, we'll be sure to pass it along there in terms of Byron Brown. Josh Boutwell reported that Troy coach Gerard Parker says that QB Goose Crowder and Tucker Kilcrease, as well as defensive lineman Luis Medina, will all be game time decisions after going down with injuries against UL Monroe. And this is a short week because they play Texas State on Thursday night. So this will be the second time that Goose Crowder was injured. He missed a game earlier due to injury. Not sure if it's the same, if this injury was related. He didn't play very much at all in the game. It was early on in the game he got injured. Tucker Kilcrease came in for him, and then Tucker Kilcrease got injured. So stay tuned to that quarterback situation for Troy as they take on Texas State Thursday night. Jay Norvell, Colorado State head coach, says he expects Torrey Horton, wide receiver, and safety Jack Howell will both be available for Colorado State this weekend as they take on Oregon State. They were on a bye last week, so they had an extra week to get ready. Ball State head coach Mike New says wide receiver Ty Robinson, who's been out since the first snap of the first game, is hopeful to return to practice tomorrow after missing the last 3 games. He was Caden Simmons' favorite target last year when he was available, and he was set to be the wide receiver 1 for Ball State this season. Got injured on the very first snap of Ball State's first game, so hopefully he's be able to return to practice tomorrow and come back for the next Ball State game. Jacksonville State head coach Rich Rodriguez says that running back Andrew Paul is better, and while he has to get caught up, he expects him to be a full go on Friday against Kennesaw State. So we might get to see some Andrew Paul there for the Gamecocks on Friday night. I had some folks ask me earlier today about South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez. They didn't see the game. They didn't know what happened, but he was removed in the fourth quarter of Saturday's 42-10 loss to LSU. That was purely for precautionary reasons. He was not injured. That's what Major Applewhite said that today. But then he also shared some news that I had not heard, and it's not some good news on wide receiver Jamal Pritchett. He left after taking a hard hit in the first quarter against LSU. He suffered a concussion, and so he's going to have to go through the concussion protocol before he can be cleared to play against Arkansas State. Some good injury news, some positive news. Running back Harrison Whaley is targeting the Utah State game for his return. That's what head coach Jay Savelle said today. So good news there coming out of Wyoming. Some not so good news out of Wyoming. Quarterback Evan Svoboda broke his nose during last weekend's Air Force game, according to Jay Savelle today. He played through the injury, and he was able to seal the game with a 17-yard run in the fourth quarter. So don't expect him to sit out, but nonetheless, he does have a broken nose. And the final piece of injury news, Buffalo wide receiver Nick McMillan is out for the season with a knee injury to his left knee. He's going to be having a season-ending surgery here soon. So hopefully Nick McMillan can get back out, can make a full recovery, and we'll see him back on the field here in 2025. All right, let's get into our Week 5 review, the G5 versus P4 games. What do you got for us, Luke?
All right, so we had Northern Illinois at NC State Saturday. NC State wins 24-17. Like I said earlier, Justice, I did not get to watch a lot of football due to the Hall of Fame stuff. What do you have for us here?
Man, Northern Illinois should have won the game. They had some turnovers in the second half that really kind of crushed them. They still had opportunity to win. They just couldn't get it done. A couple of interceptions, and man, Northern Illinois looked like the better team, but they led to their own demise with the turnovers. But kudos to them going to NC State, playing a tough game. Would have loved to have seen them get the win, and in my opinion, they should have won the game. They lost a turnover battle, and that's what lost them the game.
Then we had Western Kentucky at Boston College. I was able to kind of track this a little bit, and Western Kentucky held the lead there for quite a bit, but Boston College pulls out the win 21-20. I understand you had some eyes on this one. Justin, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Northern Illinois game, man. Western Kentucky kind of shot themselves in the foot. Caden Veltkamp played lights out in the first half, and then it was complete opposite in the second half. Again, 2 interceptions led to Boston College points, and that was kind of what did it for them. I mean, Western Kentucky should have won this game, in my opinion, but they lose the turnover battle, and that costs them the game. So, at this point, in my opinion, the G5 should have had 2 wins, but the turnover battle did not go their way and didn't happen.
Well, let's talk about the win that did happen. Louisiana at Wake Forest. Louisiana wins 41-38. I covered some of that there in the Offensive Player of the Week. Justice, what do you got to say about this one?
It's I hate to say this, but I thought the referees were pretty one-sided. and not in the side of Louisiana, more for Wake Forest. There are several controversial calls in that game. They all seem to go Wake Forest's way. But Louisiana, at the end of the day, was able to pull it out. Wake Forest had a shot to send the game to overtime, and maybe that was the case of the ball not lying. The kicker absolutely shanked it and gave Louisiana the win. And so at the end of the day, justice was served. Louisiana got the win despite the poor efforts by the referees.
And then concluding the P4 versus G5 matchup, South Alabama goes into LSU, and LSU wins 42-10. Let's get into. Oh, you got something there?
I was just gonna say I expected more points from South Alabama. I didn't think they could beat LSU, but I thought they would have at least gotten 14 to 20 points. But hey, live to fight another day.
All right, now let's get to our good G5 versus G5 matchups that happen. South Florida at Tulane. Tulane just crushes South Florida, partly because Byron Brown went out, but they win 45-10. Mensa was just lights out from what I was able to pay attention to.
This game was over before. This game was over before Byron Brown left the game. It was over long before that. South Florida does not look good, even with Byron Brown. And the more I watch Tulane, the more I watch Mensa, Darian Mensa, the more I'm impressed with him, man. He is a daggone pretty good. He's a pretty good quarterback. They still rotated him out some with Ty Thompson, in terms of running play, where Ty Thompson was just going to run the ball. But Mensa, he's got some running ability as well. Maybe he's not as great a runner as Ty Thompson, but he's effective at it. He can do it. But man, he is just so accurate. Just everything on the money. This Tulane team, man, looks really, really good. I think, today I would say they might beat Memphis. It's going to be a good matchup when Tulane and Memphis play each other for sure.
And that one's at Memphis, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah.
And let's go from one blowout to another. Ball State at James Madison. The streamers were flying. JMU wins 63-7. What'd you think about this one?
Just the JMU offense, man. Back-to-back weeks, 70 points and then 63 this week, man. They got things rolling, like we said earlier. They got things rolling after the bye week. I would have thought Ball State would have been able to put up a more of a fight than they did. But kudos to James Madison and the Purple Streamers, man. They were flying all over the place on Saturday.
All right, and then to a closer one, again, highlighted some of this in the Player of the Week. Texas State at Sam Houston. Sam Houston wins from come behind fashion 40-39. This one was an exciting one to watch. What were your thoughts?
I didn't get to watch a lot of this game. I watched mostly the first quarter or so, and that was dominated by Texas State. The Sam Houston offensive line looked really, really rough. They were getting beat by that Texas State D line over and over again. First offensive series of the game, Texas State gets a touchdown. Sam Houston gets the ball. Hunter Watson gets sacked and fumbles, and it's a scoop and score. And they're down 14-0 in the first few minutes of the game. So I did not get to see what happened, where the turning point was, if you will. From listening to some other folks, I guess the big turning point was Texas State went for it on 4th and 1 on their own side of the field and didn't get it. Instead of punting the ball, and Sam Houston got it and went on and scored, and so that seemed to really kind of shift the momentum and seal Texas State's fate. But when I was watching it early on, like I said, Texas State, the defensive line just kind of dominated Sam Houston. So kudos to Sam Houston for figuring out a way to get it done.
So I, again, didn't get to watch any of those games, but Hunter Watson had a lot of yards on the ground. Was it from the scrambling and then like have to go, or what you were able to gather? Like they kind of had designed runs for him.
I did not get to see that. Like I
Okay.
said, I only saw the first quarter. My guess, just by how things went, what I did watch is it could have been a mix of both, right? Because like I said, that offensive line was having a hard time with the Texas State defensive line. So I'm sure a lot of it was scrambles just to avoid pressure.
All right. Then we had Liberty and App State. That game was canceled due to flooding in Boone from the hurricane. Fresno State at UNLV. Game we were excited for. Another blowout. UNLV wins big 59-14. Georgia Southern at Georgia State. The Battle of Georgia.
Back to the UNLV game, we talked a little bit about it, but man, that game was like I didn't see that coming, right? I mean, not a blowout of that proportion. I thought this would be a tight contest in terms of both teams being able to score, but that UNLV defense is legit, man. They're legit.
Georgia Southern at Georgia State. Georgia Southern wins 38-21. Georgia State, a team I think a lot of people are sleeping on that. I kind of get
They're
this
playing
vibe.
better than I think. Yeah, anyone expected.
Yeah,
They're playing better for sure.
like I get this vibe of like what Sam Houston was last year, where they kind of like the ball just bounced the wrong way, and they we're trying to find that first win, but maybe had a couple opportunities. Like Georgia State kind of gives me some of those vibes where it's like they get a, I mean they got a nice win against Vandy, but like they could be in a couple more games, but like putting up a lot of points. So I think Georgia State doing the right things here going forward with that new coaching staff. We had another blowout with Tulsa at North Texas. North Texas wins 52-20. I feel like anytime I did check the box score, Morris was throwing a touchdown or something. Like he was just putting up all sorts of points. UL Monroe at Troy. We talked about UL Monroe wins 13-9. More of a defensive struggle. Justice, what were your thoughts around this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just came down to the quarterbacks of Troy kind of getting knocked out. Right, they were on their third string quarterback. That UL Monroe defense is good. I mean, UL Monroe is going to run the ball and play good defense. That's kind of be their MO, I think, this year. They have a big test though this week against JMU. We'll see if that defense can hold up against that JMU offense.
All right, New Mexico at New Mexico State. New Mexico wins this one 50-40, and then Washington State at Boise State. Boise State wins 45-24. The Fighting Ashton Genties just crushing it. Ron puts in there in the chat, Genty for Heisman. Oh, Eric Froton, welcome. Love the G5 Hive. Welcome, Eric. We love you.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that Washington State wasn't able to do more offensively against Boise. I thought this game was going to be a lot like the San Jose State Washington State game or the Boise State Oregon game, and it wasn't. Boise State just kind of dominated Washington State, which surprised me a little bit.
All right, now before we get to our Week 6 previews, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button and then make sure you subscribe. If you're watching us on X, please like and retweet. All right, let's get into our Week 6 preview. We've got a G5 versus P4 matchup, and that is Syracuse at UNLV. We've got Trick or Treat 123 asking us on YouTube what we think of UNLV versus the Syracuse matchup. I'm excited for this one. You've had McCord throwing the ball around the yard for Syracuse. I'm trying to. Why am I blanking on their running back's name?
LaQuint Allen.
LaQuint Allen. He's been being very involved in the passing game, and I feel like this is a game that he's going to have to be involved again because of that defense. Maybe some dump offs here and there. But yeah, I really think that UNLV and that stout defense can stop Syracuse. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think if this was a game Matt Saluka was still the quarterback, I think they might lose. But I think, with the passing that Hajj-Malik Williams brings, in addition to his running ability, I think this is a game that UNLV is gonna make another statement, right? I mean, we saw them already beat Kansas, and they won that game, but it wasn't like they beat them super convincingly. But they won, and I think UNLV is going to use this game as a statement. They're ranked in the top 25, and I think that that defense is going to be fired up. Jackson Woodard, Jalon Catalon, those guys are going to be fired up, and they're going to look to try to shut down this orange. And I think UNLV is going to get a very convincing win. I think UNLV is favored by 5.5, I do believe. I think the over under is in the upper 50s. I want to say somewhere between 55 and 59. Yeah, I think UNLV is going to make a statement. The game's at home. They're ranked, and they're going to say, "Hey, here we are. We belong. We are your G5 representative for the college football playoffs."
All right. And let's get to our G5 versus G5 matchups. Let's see. Give me a quick second. And we've got Navy versus Air Force in the much anticipated battle here between service academies. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Navy's going to hang up 35 at least. Everyone knows Navy's putting up a lot of points this year.
One thing I failed to mention when we talked about the injuries is Dylan Carson's back. He played last week for Air Force. I haven't looked to see if he started or if he even played a full snap load, but it's encouraging to see him back. He was expected to be the starter there at fullback for Air Force. Got injured, I believe, in their first week and hasn't been back since. So it's encouraging to see that Dylan Carson's back out there. But yeah, Air Force doesn't look good this year. We know from our worker bee preview with Rick that they had a lot of turnover, a lot of lost production, both offense and defense, and so they're going to be looking to build for the future. But Navy is rocking and rolling, and I agree with you. I think Navy's gonna rock and roll here, but you can't ever really tell when the academies play each other, right? I mean, one can be really good and one can be really bad, but it's always like any rivalry. It's always going to be a fierce battle.
All right. Then we've got Army at Tulsa, Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to go with Army in this one as they stay undefeated. Miami against Toledo, Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to take
big MAC
Toledo.
Game. Yeah, I think
big one.
It's a big matchup in the MAC. Miami hasn't looked as good as I would have thought they have, but they played a pretty tough out-of-conference schedule. This will be a tough matchup for the MAC. Could go a long way in deciding who is in that MAC championship game. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Toledo.
Colorado State, they've been a little bit disappointing this year from what my expectations were. Like I said, should get Horton back this week. They've got Oregon State Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I think I'm going to side with the Beavers on this one. What are your thoughts going into this? Justice?
Yeah, I think so as well. I don't know that the Colorado State defense is going to be able to stop that the rushing duo of Hankerson and Griffin there for the Beavers. And like you said, they've been a bit of a disappointment on offense as well. Maybe they'll be like JMU and use the bye week. And they'll come out guns a-blazing, but I got to see it first.
Utah State at Boise State. If Utah State has an answer to stop Ashton Genty, then sure, Utah State wins. I just don't think anybody has that. So
Yeah, no
what
one,
did you say?
no one has that answer, right? I mean, the dude's averaging over 10 yards a carry. Like that's just insane, given the volume that he's getting.
Old Dominion against Coastal Carolina Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, Justice, I'm going with Coastal Carolina, and this one coming off a bye.
It's a big game, I think, for the Sun Belt East, right? Because one of these teams wins, it could kind of propel them to be a contender in the Sun Belt East. We always play Coastal Carolina tough. Their starting quarterback, Ethan Vasco. If you don't know, he was originally committed to Old Dominion. He was committed to Old Dominion. He's a local kid. He's going to Old Dominion. And then lo and behold, P4 Kansas comes and cements an offer right before signing day. He signs with Kansas, goes to Kansas, realizes, hey, I'm not going to play here. Enters the transfer portal, ends up at Coastal Carolina. So yeah, a little bit of extra in that game, ODU versus Coastal Carolina. ODU offense looked better this past week. Grant Wilson got hurt again. Colton Joseph had to come in, and I was impressed by what I saw with Colton, and I'm hopeful that the offense can continue to make strides to improve and that they can beat Coastal Carolina. But nonetheless, should be a good game.
And so being in Iowa, I'm much more of a Big Ten guy like that. I grew up and over the last couple of years definitely dove into the G5. Hence, we're here making this. The weirdest thing about Coastal Carolina, in my opinion, is people's take on how close they are to Myrtle Beach.
Well, it's not that far. It's like I don't know, 20-minute drive. I mean, they're not on the beach, but it's not like it's an hour away either. I've been there many times.
That is the most wildest, I feel like, weirdest argument that I kind of hear from people that that's what they talk about. They talk about the distance to Myrtle Beach, or they say that they're playing on the ocean or something. I don't know what it is, but I feel like people are very, very strongly passionate about Coastal Carolina and whether they are close to Myrtle Beach or not. I don't know.
It's pretty close. I mean, they're not technically located in Myrtle Beach. They're in Conway. But like I said, a 20-minute drive and you can be standing in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's not like it's super far.
All right. What do we got here? Gabe Davis. It's a 45-minute to get to the nearest side of life. 20 minutes is nothing.
Absolutely.
All right. Getting into more games, we got South Alabama versus Arkansas State Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Gio Lopez is much-watched TV. Like I said, pulled for precautionary reasons. Hopefully Pritchett's back. If not, Voisin probably steps in there into the slot and maybe
to
has
lead them. Yeah. I think the story of this is going to be how Arkansas State plays coming off the bye, right? Jalen Rayner has not looked good. And I read that they brought in somebody, and I forget who it was.
John Gruden.
There it was John Gruden to try to get Jalen Rayner out of his funk. So it'd be interesting to see. Like I said, Timmy McClain's kind of outplayed him the last couple of weeks before the bye, and so kind of be interesting to kind of see what happens. I think this is the game, right? That if Jalen Rayner does not look good, this is the game that I think they're going to make the switch to Timmy McClain and then go with that moving forward. This is kind of the last shot, I feel like, for Jalen Rayner now that we're here in conference play.
And then a really exciting game. James Madison, UL Monroe, I think, outperforming expectations. And then James Madison, I would say from the general public, doing what James Madison does without really knowing about all the nuances of the coaching staff changes and the players and all that stuff. I think James Madison also kind of, in my opinion, outdoing expectations too. So this is a really good game, and we'll see if James Madison can put up a whole bunch of points again.
Yeah, it's going to be a contrast of styles, right? JMU high flying offense, UL Monroe wanting to play ball control and run the ball and good defense, and yeah, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I think JMU wins the game. I don't think UL Monroe just doesn't. I don't think they're quite to the level of JMU yet. But they've been certainly impressive so far this season.
And then Nevada at San Jose State at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. San Jose State coming off a bye. I think this one will be high scoring. Nevada likes to toss the ball around, so this one could be a sneaky fun game to watch. I don't know the over under, but I'd be tempted to take the over in this one.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, both teams have offenses look good. Defense is not so much. And the over-under is only 48.5. That seems pretty low for this game.
Yeah, I feel like San Jose State could do that.
Feels like an easy over.
Yeah, I feel like San Jose could do that themselves. I'm going to rate that one. I got to rate this one so I don't forget.
The spread is San Jose State minus 7.5, total of 48.5. I'm looking on ESPN, so it might vary about other books, but still, that over-under seems too low for that game.
All right, and then Hawaii at San Diego State at 8 p.m. Eastern. Hawaii is coming off a bye. San Diego State, they should be getting their quarterback back.
He was back this past week, or he was back before, I guess, the week before, Danny O'Neal. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of been a disappointing season for San Diego State, I think, to this point. But maybe they'll get right against Hawaii. This could be another one that could have some sneaky shootout potential as well.
All right, I want to read this before we get into our 2020 guys. I want to read this comment from Eric Froton. He says, appreciate the love, my brothers. Gave you guys a shout out on the show this evening. Legit the best G5 duo in the land. We appreciate the kind words, Eric. If you don't get a chance to, or if you can get a chance to go see CFF College Fantasy Football with Eric Froton, I think JD Yankee. Who else is there?
Josh Chevalier.
Mike great dude.
Bridge, and CFF champs. Yeah, they all access. Fantasy Points all access. Follow those guys if you're looking for some more college fantasy football information.
All right, let's get into the G5 Hive 2020 guys. Let me capture a little note here, and let's get going. Quarterbacks. Now, again, I kind of rank these kind of as who I would want leading my team based off of their pass attempts and yardage. Do you have that volume there? Do you have the yardage? If you don't have the yardage, can I see a path to getting there as we're getting into conference play here? If you're getting the yardage and you don't have the attempts, is it lucky? Is it reproducible? Things like that. So Emmett Brown comes in at number 1, had a bye in week 5. He dropped to number 2 in the G5 in passing yards per game with a measly 322.5 yards, just crushing it out there. Touchdowns, he's second with 13, third with completions per game with 24, and attempts per game with 39. He has the highest ADOT of the 2020 guys with 13 yards. San Jose State is averaging 33.3 points per game.
One thing I just wanted to point out for those that might be the first time watching us. So the 2020 guys on the screen here, you'll see below the week 5, 2024, you'll see the stats for each category, each group, each position group. So in quarterbacks, if the guy's on this list, that means he's top 20 in pass attempts and passing yards on a per game basis. Have to be in top 20 in both of those categories for a quarterback.
Thank you for clarifying that. Number 2, Chandler Morris, North Texas, 37 pass attempts per game, leads the G5 in touchdowns with 16, overtook Emmett Brown with his bye this week. North Texas averaging 42.3 points per game. So Chandler Moore's throwing it all over the yard. A sneaky name coming in at number 3. This one was what surprised me. And yes, they had a bye, but Joey Aguilar, App State, comes in at number 3. He leads the G5 in pass attempts per game with 41, which kind of took me by surprise a little bit. Averaging 305 passing yards per game. He only has 6 passing touchdowns, which, I just got done talking about how Chandler Morris has 16 and Emmett Brown has 13. So that's what's kind of like, he's got that opportunity. He's throwing the ball a lot, throwing for the yardage. If he can get that touchdown, I think that can be the thing that propels him to the next level. So I think process-wise, Joey Aguilar on pace, but those 6 touchdowns is in this bottom half of this 2020 group. Seth Hennigan, Memphis, just by percentage points, is completing more passes per game than Morris. And he's doing that 25.2 versus Morris's 25 completions per game. So essentially the same, but averaging 39 attempts per game, while Memphis is averaging 31.5 points per game. Devin Dampier, I agree with you. Gabe Davis, Devin Dampier is a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, we won't get to watch him this week as they're on a bye, but he leads the G5 in big-time throws with 17. He adds 65 yards a game on the ground, not including sacks, which leads this 2020 group. New Mexico, honestly, is surprising, but they're leading. They're averaging 32.3 points per game, which kind of shocking going into the season, in my opinion. Christian Veillere, Georgia State, least amount of time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.27 seconds. I thought that was kind of interesting, but he's taking care of the ball really well. Again, Georgia State processes there. They're a sneaky team. Number 7, Jordan McLeod, Texas State. There's nothing really that popped out this week to me to mention here. So I'll go to the next group of guys. Braden Shager, Hawaii, has the most time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.81 seconds, which is tied with Connor Bazelak, who we'll get to later. However, he has the most pressures per game with the 14. I feel like this is the same story as last week. Maybe just holding the ball a little bit too long. Maybe guys aren't getting open. There's a lot of things that can go into that. Mikey Keene, I feel like the same song and dance. He's just a solid quarterback. Does nothing just spectacular, but does what he needs to do. And like always, Jake Garcia, East Carolina, may lead us wire to wire in turnover-worthy plays. He's now up to 15. That's 5 more than the next highest in J.C. French with 10. And he's last in completions per game with 20. J.C. French, Georgia Southern, he's the last in yards per game with 224 yards per game. Nicholas Vadiato, Middle Tennessee, bottom tier of these next 2 that I'm going to mention. Bottom of the 2020 guys on attempts, yards per game, touchdowns, completions per game, along with Connor Bazelak, Bowling Green. So it's kind of like I would have him as this tier of like Mikey Keene, just above Jake Garcia, J.C. French, and then Vadiato and Bazelak there at the bottom. So we'll see if these bottom 4 guys will stay in there next week, or if anybody will drop out, if we've got somebody to add to the group. Moving on to running backs. Now, these running backs are averaging 15 or more touches per game and 88 yards or more per game. That's all these guys that we're going to talk about here. So we've got Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, 13 touchdowns with leads to the G5. The next closest is Mario Anderson with 8. Like Justice mentioned earlier, he has 43 missed tackles on the year, getting 22 touches per game, which is actually tied with number 2, Ontario Brown, NIU running back, averaging 139 yards per game. However, only 2 touchdowns through 5 weeks. Ontario Brown could be one of those breakout names when we get to MAC play. If that touchdown, like you're getting all these touches, if you can start getting some touchdowns, that could really propel Ontario Brown. And just like that, Marquez Cooper could also benefit from more touchdowns. He leads the G5 in touches per game with 25, but only has 3 touchdowns through 5 weeks. So getting all that volume, you could see that turnaround. Mario Anderson from Memphis, averaging 4 receptions per game, which is second in the G5. And like I said, he is second in the G5 in touchdowns with 8. Next, we've got Mekhi Hughes, Tulane. Then Anthony Tyus, Ohio. Braden Sloan, Ball State.
Tyus didn't get the start this week. I think Ricky Hunt got the start, but then like they were saying Tyus was hurt, but then Tyus comes in and still gets his 30 carries. So I don't know what that was all about.
Well, then they got a bye week this week, so we'll see if the bye week keeps Anthony Tyus up here or if he falls out. Ishmael Ahmadi, friend of the show, Texas State running back, comes in there at number 7. Dean Connors, Rice comes in at Mahdi was number 8, sorry. Dean Connors, Rice leads the G5 in receptions per game with 5. He's averaging 27 yards per game in the reception department. And like I said, just 1 reception more than Mario Anderson. New to the list here is Terrion Stewart, Bowling Green. But he is pretty much at 0 the past game. 0 receptions per game, tied for 4th in the G5 with missed tackles, 4th with 23 with Marquez Cooper. So he can make you miss, but will not add much in the passing game. Rasul Faison, Utah State, was on a bye this last week, but had a back-to-back 100-yard games prior to the bye. Got Boise State at Boise State this week. And then Lee Beebe, I think, is new to the list this week at UAB.
And these guys, for the running backs, it was total touches, total yards, top 20 in both categories.
Moving over to wide receivers, and before I get started on here, I'll do it so you don't have to do it this time justice. We've got the top 20 in targets and receiving yards. So if you're in the top 20 in targets in the G5 and your top 20 in receiving yards in the G5, that means you're earning your targets and you're making good with those targets. So Nash, Ashlock, and Wysong, all with the double-digit targets per game. All the guys that I'm going to talk about here are averaging 70-plus yards per game. So we've got Nick Nash, San Jose State, leads the G5 in yards, targets, reception, touchdowns. He is the Ashton Genty of the wide receiver group. Luke Wysong at number 2 from New Mexico, and then Pofili Ashlock, Hawaii. Now, Pofili Ashlock is lower on the yards, but he just gets so much volume that like you feel comfortable having him as your wide receiver week to week. Just a crucial part of what Hawaii does runs through Pofili Ashlock. A name that maybe not a lot of people know, number 4, Dante Wright. Dude just puts up touchdowns and like 99 yards or more a week. He's tied for 3rd of these 2020 guys in touchdowns with 4, tied with Jamal Pritchett and Ted Hurst. Caden Robinson comes in at number 5, App State, still searching for his first touchdown of the season, averaging 6 receptions on 9 targets for 91 yards per game. Now, just think if he can get like a touchdown per game coming through, like I said, Joey's throwing the ball a lot, and he's looking Caden's way. This looks like something that just has the potential to just explode here in the next couple weeks. Devontae Ross comes in at number 6 from Troy. He leads the 2020 guys in yards after catch per reception with 8.9 yards. He is second in the yards per game with 106. But this like process doesn't kind of match kind of what I was talking about. He's the last of the 2020 guys in targets with 8 and second to last of the 2020 guys in receptions per game with 5. So he's getting you the like low amount of targets in comparison to these other guys.
He's probably got the highest ADOT, I would assume.
I'm trying to remember. Ted Hurst has the highest ADOT with 18. But like he's just doing a lot when he gets the ball in his hands. So it's kind of one of those things that he's not getting there from a volume perspective, but he's making it happen. Camden Benjamin, Tulsa, comes in at number 7. Jamal Pritchett, South Alabama, comes in at 8. He's the last of this 2020 group with 78 yards per game, which, again, still a solid number. Cade McDonald, Miami of Ohio, at number 9. And 10, Ted Hurst, Georgia State, like I said, leads the 2020 guys in ADOT with 18. I think he's getting like 4 receptions per game, too, but he's hauling in the big ones. Let's get to our tight ends. Everyone's favorite, Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green. He is a beast. 11 targets, average 11 targets a game, 9 receptions per game, 135 yards receiving per game. Just amazing. Tanner Koziel, Ball State, 8 targets, 7 receptions, and 72 yards per game is what he is averaging. Holden Willis, Middle Tennessee, 62 yards per game. Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 50 yards per game. And a new name, I think we've talked about him in this program at some point, but
we talked to him several times in the waiver wires.
Is Jake Newell, Akron. He's getting you 4 receptions on 6 targets, 33 yards. Now, he's not getting you a lot of yards, but of this, like, there's just like this tier break. And that 6 targets is kind of that tier break here in the G5. So let me quick get my stats up. Great radio, Luke. So it's like you got Harold Fan with 11, Tanner Kozo with 8, Holden Willis was 4, Holden Willis was 6, Jake Noel was 6, Dorian Fleming with 5, almost 6. So it's like it's kind of this like little break between them, but he's getting you the targets and he's catching just about all of them. He's got 2 touchdowns, with 4 being the most for a tight end in the G5. Justice, take it away for the defensive side.
All right. So for defensive linemen, we're using Havoc rate. If you're not familiar with Havoc rate, there's a lot of things that go into that calculation, but it's basically sacks, quarterback pressures, quarterback hits, tackles for loss, and then stops. And stops are defined by stopping the opposing offense on like a 3rd or 4th down. And so these are the top 5 defensive ends in terms of Havoc rate. Number 1, Bradley Weaver, Ohio, a Havoc rate of 19%. It's his 2nd straight week on the list, and he ranks 1st in total quarterback pressures among defensive ends with 24 pressures. Number 2, the only guy on this list that has been on the list every single week. Maybe he's going to go wider wire here in terms of Havoc rate, and that's a guy having a phenomenal season, Mike Green, defensive end, Marshall, Havoc rate of 18%. And he ranks 3rd in the G5 in sacks with 5. And I think that's even 3rd like in the country or pretty close to it. But Mike Green having a breakout season here for Marshall. If you watched our preview with the guys from the Thundercast pod, when we did Marshall, I think that was back like the first week of June, I think. Maybe it was July, somewhere around there. But they just raved about Mike Green and how he was going to be the man this year. And boy, were they right. He is the man. Number 3, Desmond Little, UAB, Havoc rate of 16%. He has been on this list 4 weeks in a row. He ranks 9th in terms of total quarterback pressures with 15. Number 4, defensive end, Cameron Stewart, Temple, Havoc rate of 16%. He's made the list 3 times this season. He ranks 4th in tackles for loss with 4. And rounding us out at number 5, first time on the 2020 players for defensive ends is Brian Ugwu from Miami, Havoc rate of 15%. And he ranks 3rd in tackles per game for defensive ends with 4.75. Now let's move over to the defensive tackles. Same stat. We're using Havoc rate for the defensive tackles. Number 1, this week, and first time on the list, defensive tackle Anthony Hawkins, Bowling Green, havoc rate of 15%, and he ranks first among defensive tackles in sacks with 4. Number 2 has been on this list, I think, 3 weeks now. He was even on this week he was on this list before we split it up. We decided to split it up between D tackles and DNs. He was the only D tackle to make the list back then. Deonta Johnson, East Carolina, havoc rate of 12%, ranks first among defensive tackles and tackles for loss with 5. Number 3, a first-timer this week, defensive tackle Chris Fitzgerald from James Madison, havoc rate of 12% and ranks 8th among D tackles in stops with 10. Another first-timer here at number 4, Jonah Pace, Central Michigan, havoc rate of 11%. He ranks 8th in stops with 10. And then rounding us out at number 5, Peyton Zadroik, Air Force. It's his second consecutive week on this list. Havoc rate of 10%. He ranks 3rd in total pressures among defensive tackles with 11. All right, moving over to the linebackers. These guys are the tackling machines. They lead the G5 in tackles per game through week 5. Number 1, everyone's favorite, Sean Dolak, Buffalo, averaging 12.6 tackles per game. It's 3rd week in a row on the list. He also ranks first in stops among linebackers with 36. He's just having an impressive season all around. Number 2, Colin Ramos, Navy. It's 2 straight weeks he's been on this list. He's averaging 11.5 tackles per game, and he has 7 quarterback pressures on the season. Number 3, linebacker Dorian Hopkins from UTEP, averaging 11 tackles per game. He is the only player that's made this list every week, and he has 20 stops on the season. Linebacker Trevian Barnes, Florida International, averaging 10.8 tackles per game. His 3rd week in a row. He has 6 total quarterback pressures on the season, and he has really taken off. I would have expected, before the season, we would have put Reggie Peterson on this list. Standout middle linebacker for the Florida International. But after, I think it was week 1, Reggie decided he no longer wanted to play football. So he retired from football, and that provided an opportunity here for Trevian Barnes, and he has stepped up in a big way here for Florida International. Rounding out this list and new to the list and a teammate of Sean Dolak, Red Murdoch from Buffalo, averaging 10.2 tackles per game. And he ranks 3rd among linebackers in sacks with 3. So it just kind of shows you who's leading this Buffalo Bulls defense, the 2 linebackers in Dolak and Murdoch getting it done in terms of tackles. All right, moving on to the defensive backs. We're going to start first with cornerbacks. And these guys are ranked according to adjusted net yards per coverage snap. It's a calculation that takes into account the yards they give up when they're targeted. You subtract any interception yards. You take into consider touchdowns thrown against them, subtract interceptions, and then you're dividing all that by the coverage snap. The top NFL guys are right around 3. And all of these guys here are not all of them in the negative. First week, not all of them are in the negative. I think that the top 3 are in the negative. Number 1, we've talked about him. We've been talking about him since our Worker Bee series with Coach and McDoom Island. He told us way back whenever we did that interview, that quarterbacks don't want to visit McDoom Island. And again, he nailed it, man. Matthew McDoom, Coastal Carolina, having a heck of a season. He has an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.3, and he has a quarterback rating against of 0.0. Quarterbacks do not want to throw against Matthew McDoom. Next up, cornerback DJ Harvey, San Jose State. He has an adjusted net yards against per coverage snap of negative 0.15, and he has a QB rating against of 21. Both McDoom and Harvey were on this list last week. A newcomer to the list, cornerback Dante Joyner, Arkansas State, an adjusted net yard against of negative 0.03, and he ranks second in G5 cornerbacks with interceptions with 2. Number 4, he was also number 4 last week on this list. Cornerback Rashawn Pleasant Tulane has an adjusted net yards against of 0.00, and he's averaging 3.4 tackles per game. And rounding us out, a newcomer to the list, cornerback Torrey Richardson from Temple, adjusted net yards against of 0.02, and has a quarterback rating against of 27.10. Moving on to the safeties, again, same criteria, adjusted net yards against per coverage snap. Leading the way for the safeties is Jerron Manning from Old Dominion with an adjusted net yards against of negative 1.28. That's tops in all of G5 among defensive backs. And he ranks second in the G5 safeties for interceptions with 3. The top 3 on this list are all unchanged from a week ago. Number 2 is safety Jalen Catalon, UNLV, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.51. He ranks first in interceptions with 4. As I mentioned last week, I'm just super excited for Jalen having a year where he's finally healthy. I guess 3 or 4 years ago at this point, when he was a freshman at Arkansas, he busted out to the scene, had an amazing freshman season, and then he just hasn't been healthy since then. He was at Texas last year. Now he's at UNLV, and it looks like he's finally healthy and playing the way that we saw in his freshman year. Number 3, his teammate at UNLV, Jonathan Baldwin, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.41, and he has a QB rating against of 10.7. Coming in at number 4, making his second appearance on the list, Al Maha Ali from Charlotte, an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.31, and he is 4th in the G5 in pass breakups with 3. And rounding us out, a newcomer to the list this week, Kawan McCray, Jacksonville State, an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.23, averages 4.75 tackles per game. And that's going to do it for our 2020 players this week. Now we're going to move into our waiver wire players for week 5. And Luke's going to kick us off with the quarterbacks.
All right. So quarterbacks, I'm looking, what do we have here on the waivers that are 30% owned or less? That means they're available in 70% or more of your leagues. And I'm looking, again, I'm looking at pass attempts, pass completions, and yardage. So it's like, if you're throwing a lot but you're not completing, like, do you want to have these guys on your team? But these are the guys that I have identified. Ben Woldridge, Louisiana, my player of the week, 8% owned. They had Tulane, he scored 39.6 points. Wake Forest, 40.25 points. He has added 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks on the ground. He will get you about 2 to 3 points per game just from rushing. He's not like super mobile, but he'll get you some. He's only taken 3 sacks all year, which, from college, the sack yardage go towards your rushing. Those 3 sacks have accrued for 22 yards. So he's not taking a lot of sacks. So you're not going to lose those 2 to 3 points a lot that you're going to be getting. I feel like you can feel safe getting if you need 23, 26 points per game, I feel like that's his floor. Christian Veillere, Georgia State, 4% owned, 26.9 points per game is what he's averaging. They've got a bye this week. Then they've got ODU, Marshall, App State. Go ahead, Justice, tell me when you get scared about something. UConn, JMU, Arkansas State, Texas State, Coastal, Georgia State, they're going to be down. They're going to be throwing the ball. I really like what's going on here. Christian Veillere, a 2020 guy I talked about earlier, 4% owned, potential there. 2 other guys here that were on the 2020, so I'm not going to talk about him too much. Jake Garcia, East Carolina. Yeah, he's, puts the ball in danger, but he's 8% owned, averaging 24.8 points per game. Connor Bazelak, Bowling Green, 2% owned, averaging 21.1 points per game. There's a lot of bye weeks this week. So if you need somebody, look at some of those guys. Tyler Huff, Jacksonville State, 10% owned. He's had his last 3 games, 25 points, 28 points, 24 points. He's coming off of a bye. He's a dual threat guy. They've got Kennesaw State, what was that, Thursday night, New Mexico State, a bye, and then Middle Tennessee after that. So I like Tyler Huff going forward. Next, we've got Bryson Daly, Army, 18% owned, averaging 31.8 points per game. He's had 49.85 and 35.9 in his last 2. In those 2 games, he had 23 and 24 rushing attempts, respectively, had over 100 yards rushing in his last 3 contests, with 6 rushing touchdowns in his last 2. They've got Tulsa, UAB, ECU, and then a bye. ECU's defense pretty good, but nothing, just going up against this Army defense, tough to scheme against. So I like Bryson Daly going forward. Then Justice's Offensive Player of the Week, Hajj-Malik Williams, UNLV, 7% owned. He just put up 45 points against Fresno State. He went 13 of 16 for 182 yards. Saluka never threw for that many yards in his starts. 161 against Dixon was the most that he had thrown. He's had 3 touchdowns and ran 12 times for 119 yards and a touchdown. Is Hajj-Malik Williams. Brennan Lewis, mentioned Nevada, likes to throw the ball. He's a 22% owned dual threat guy, has a good floor. We've got conference play coming up. They've got San Jose State, Oregon State, Fresno State, and Hawaii. J.C. French and Mikey Keene, both on the 2020 list, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. J.C. French, Georgia Southern, Mikey Keene, Fresno State, 26 and 25% owned, respectively. J.C. French averaging 22.5 points per game, while Mikey Keene 20.5 points per game. Justice, what do you got there for running backs?
All right. Actually, this unlike weeks past where we've kind of struggled, I feel like, I don't know, I didn't struggle too much to kind of find 10 guys to kind of recommend here. Number 1, we've been talking about him, I think, since week 1. He's still only 13% owned. And he's a bit of a cheat code. He's listed as a minor back on the official roster in Fantrax. He has running back and wide receiver eligibility. That's Cam Thomas from UTEP. And he does all his work in the passing game. So really, this is a play for leagues that are PPR leagues, and it's really a floor play, right? He doesn't have a super high ceiling, but he's going to get you, 13 to 15 points each and every single week. He's getting 5 to 8 receptions a game and 50 to 90 yards. He was on a bye week last week, and he's averaging 15 points per game in PPR. Next up, guy that was made the 2020 list, Razul Faison, Utah State, only 11% owned, 18 touches per game, 101 yards, again on a bye week last week. So I think, maybe folks didn't pick him up last week because he was on a bye. So maybe he won't make this list again next week. But he looks to be the lead dog in 2 back-to-back 100-yard games, like Luke said earlier. Running back Rajai Harris, East Carolina, 16% owned, 12.5 points per game, averaging 19 touches per game. Someone new this week, AJ Turner at Marshall. He's only 4% owned. He's getting limited touches. I would guess he's averaging like 9 touches, maybe 10 touches a game. But he has 3 100-yard games. He clearly looks like the best running back there at Marshall. Hopefully he can get more run moving forward. But again, he's super productive on limited touches. Next,
Justice, the number there is he's got 8 touches per game is what he's averaging. 8.25 technically.
What's his yards per game?
102. And
he's averaging 100 yards on 8 touches.
Yeah, and
that's impressive.
He's getting 7 of those 8 touches are rushes. 1 reception per game for 8 yards on only 1 touchdown. But yeah,
super impressive there for AJ Turner. Hopefully we'll see his volume increase because he, like I said, he definitely looks like the best running back there for the Thundering Herd. Next up, our freshman offensive player of the week, Ahmad Hardy, UL Monroe, only 5% owned. As we mentioned earlier, he has 2 100-yard games on the season. He looks to be the focal point of that Warhawk offense. All right, next up, running back Seth McGowan, New Mexico State, 19% owned. He's getting anywhere between 11 to 15 carries a week, 50 to 90 yards. He definitely looks like the most productive running back for New Mexico State, but they do spread the ball around. They do kind of take a committee approach there. He is averaging 13.7 points per game. Next, and I think this is the first time we've mentioned him, is running back Jaden Nixon from Western Michigan. Only 5% owned. We have been trying. We have been asking our contacts, like, what is going on with Jalen Buckley? Nobody knows. If they do know, they're not speaking. And so all we can tell you is Jaden Nixon, the last 2 games, he's had 189 yards and 146 yards. I think if he's available, you got to go get him. And then just kind of pay attention to see if Buckley's going to be back. The MAC does provide availability reports, so you can kind of use that. It's not the end all be all, but it's better than nothing. But man, like, it's clear that until Buckley returns, Jaden Nixon is going to be the man for Western Michigan. And for all we know, Jalen Buckley might not return. We just don't know. If we find anything out, we will definitely share that information.
I got a question. Do they start MAC play this week?
Yes, I believe so.
I've just got this gut feeling Buckley's coming back this week, and they've been holding him out because they want him for the MAC. So that's I don't know. I'm, I guess, more cautious than you are, Justice. I get it. Like, with the information we have, that he should be owned, but I feel like he's, with how Fantrax has the substitution, the Jalen Buckley owner needs to make sure to have him and just have him as a swap, pretty much, because it doesn't matter who you get. But I have a sneaking suspicion that Buckley's going to be back.
I don't know. See, I feel the opposite. I have this sneaking suspicion that he's out for the year. They haven't told anybody. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the way Nixon's producing, like, if he's available, you got to go get him. If you're hurting for running backs, because if there's a chance he carries a load the rest of the year, man, he could be an every week starter for you. All right, next up, running back Floyd Chalk, San Jose State, 23% owned, 12 touches, 64 yards per game. He's getting the scoring opportunities, the goal line carries there for the Spartans. They are a high-flying offense, so lots of scoring opportunities for Floyd Chalk. He was also on a bye last week. And then C.J. Campbell, first time I think we're talking about him. Florida Atlantic, 5% owned. Florida Atlantic is a committee approach. But it appears Campbell is getting the goal line work. He's only 5% owned. He has 20-plus points in each of the last 3 weeks. And even though they're sharing the load with him and Zoo Mobley, he's still getting around 15 touches a week. And rounding out the running backs, Jay Ducker, Sam Houston, only 5% owned. He's taken over as the lead back for Sam Houston. He has hit 20-plus points in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Again, if you're looking for running back, Jay Ducker looks to be the man moving forward there for the Sam Houston Bearcats. Now we're going to go back to Luke and the wide receivers.
All right, wide receivers. Let's stick with Western Michigan. Kenneth Womack makes his appearance, had a cast on his hand for most of the beginning of the year. 10.3 points per game. That was his first game back. He had 6 receptions on 9 targets for 43 yards, and he led the team in receptions on his first game back. I think Western Michigan wants to continue to keep him a part of their offense, but he might be, available. I don't have the percentage on this one. I must have forgot, but a guy that maybe people dropped after that first game, figuring he had a cast on his hand. Go see if Kenneth Womack is available. Cade McDonald, Miami. He's a 30% owned, so he's right at the threshold. I don't imagine that we'll be talking about him next week. He is a 2020 guy, averaging 15.7 points per game. If you want to hear more about him,
They
previous
say
episodes they've talked about him.
0% for Womack.
0%. All right. Let me write that down so I got it. Junior Vanderos Toledo, 15% owned, averaging 16.2 points per game. He's a good floor guy. They've got a bye in week 5 this last week. Then they've got Miami this week, Buffalo, NIU, Bowling Green. So not like a great matchup, but I think definitely usable. And like I said, there's a lot of people on bye this week. So if you have to use Junior Vanderos, he's going to be a part of that offensive game plan. Elijah Metcalf, Marshall, 17% owned, 14 points per game. A rough game a little bit last week, but 6 targets a game for 48 yards is what he's averaging. And I feel like it's kind of been more like up and down. Like you get a big game or a little game. That's why that 48 yards is a little bit, what do I want to say?
Misleading.
Help me out with my words. Misleading. There we go. Ted Hurst, Georgia State, 22% owned, 19.5 points per game, 2020 guy. They're on a bye then. I know I talked about there earlier. We got ODU, Marshall, App State, UConn, JMU, Arkansas State, Texas State, Coastal Carolina. I like just Georgia State players going forward. Then we've got Coleman Owen, Ohio. Parker Navarro came back this last week, which definitely found his man Owen there, averaging 17.9 points per game, averaging 7 targets, 6 receptions, 93 yards per game. Bye week this week in week 6. Then you got Central Michigan, Miami, Buffalo, bye, Kent State, Eastern Michigan, Toledo, Ball State. I mean, you don't love Toledo. You don't love Miami, but that's a good enough stretch that he's probably in your lineup the rest of the week, other than the bye week this week, and then after Buffalo. Raylan Sharp, Fresno State, 1% owned. His last 3 weeks, his targets are 9, 7, 16. Fantasy points 18.2, 18.2, 21.6. What's there not to like? Only 1% owned. Mountain West play is here, and Sharp is here to stay. We got Oren Singleton, Eastern Michigan, 6% owned. He's had targets his last 3 weeks of 10, 11, 12. So you like that he's getting those targets. He's had fantasy points of 16.9, 15.6, 18.6 respectively, averaging 62 yards and 6 receptions per game, getting you some touchdowns. Dean Patterson, FIU, 3%. He was heating up those last 2 weeks with 25 and 16 points, only 12.4 points this last week. However, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions for 74 yards. So still, put up a solid day for you. Dean Patterson, a name to know. And then Adrian Norton, Akron, 6% owned. His last 4 games of targets are 5, 11, 9, and 9. Fantasy points of 14.5, 23.5, 15.6, and 10.9. And a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games. So if you're just counting on, hey, who's going to luck into a touchdown, Norton might be a guy. Something that's kind of interesting about Akron, though, they're really passing the ball around there. So he might not be the guy. I mean, he's the one that's getting the touchdowns right now. It might not always be that case, but Akron's tossing the ball around a little bit more.
All right, rounding out the with the tight ends here. I'll mention Dorian Fleming. He's not pictured. He's a 2020 guy. We talked about him in that segment. He's 14% owned, averaging 12 points per game. John Michael Gillenborg, Wyoming. He's missed the first few games of the year. He's been back, and he's been back strong the last 2 weeks. 10-plus points in those 2 weeks he's been back. He's only 20% owned. I think, people were high on him to begin the year, and then you find out he's out. Folks dropped him, but they may have forgotten about him. So if you're in a league where John Michael Gillenborg is available, I'd definitely go look and snatch him up. He is roommates with Evan Svoboda. We learned that when we did our Worker Bee series there with Wyoming. Colin Weber, Charlotte, 3%. He's backup QB, but still had 9 targets in week 5, each averaging 5.6 targets, 3 receptions, 30 yards per game. Eli Wilson, App State, kind of old reliable there. 16% owned, getting 4 targets and 30 yards per game. He's just kind of steady and reliable. They did not play last week as the game got canceled. Anthony Torres, Toledo, 9% owned. They were on a bye last week, but he scored a touchdown in 3 of 4 weeks, and he leads the G5 tight ends in touchdowns with 4. And then Jacob Newell. Jake Newell, we talked about him in the 2020 guy for the first time tonight, but we have talked about him in the waiver wires, I think, for the last 3 weeks now. He is only 2% owned. He got 11 targets in week 5. And so he we talked about Adrian Norton. Jake Newell is also getting targeted in that Akron offense.
I think Newell is actually leading the room in
targets,
receptions.
Yeah, he is coming on strong for Akron. Like I said, averaging 6 targets a game, 34 yards per game, 2020 guy. We are now in MAC play, and if Jake Newell is available in your leagues and you're hurting for tight ends, he might be my number 1 ad, even over Gillenborg. It'd be close between the two of them, but those would be the top 2 of these 5 for me, especially getting into conference play there for Newell.
All right, that is going to do it for our waiver wire segment. Come back and join us next week as we discuss what happened in week 6, as well as look forward to week 7 of the 2024 season, as well as bring you all up to date on the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a retweet, a like, and a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and review. Thank you all for your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.